Do we remember that one time I was shopping at the Costco Business Center and came across these bad boys? I remember it like it was yesterday, but in reality, it was about 5 months ago. I saw this little refrigerator tub full of these giant things of beef. And walking around the store, I saw lots of people's carts filled with these. So I approached the cooler with said ground beef. Look at the sign. It says 90-10 ground beef, $1.99 a pound. I didn't quite believe it. There was actually a Costco employee standing close to this bin. I looked at him and I said, that seems like a really good deal. Like, that was what came to mind. Like it might have been a mistake. And he was like, yeah, it is. I actually am gonna pick some up myself. So you know how many I bought? 5. This is my last 10-pound tube of ground beef. It's been sitting in the bottom of my deep freezer. I'm sick of staring at it. We are finally gonna take care of this today. I've got 5 recipes to meal prep with this ground beef. We are gonna do 2 freezer meal recipes and 3 recipes to go into my freeze dryer. Because I'm doing 5 recipes, I'm just gonna divide this into 5 equal pieces. So we will just cut a hunk off for each recipe that we get through. Is this gonna be even? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Close enough. We're gonna start off with one of our freezer meal recipes, which is going to be a Korean beef stir fry type of vibe. I'm just lightly spraying my pan with some avocado oil. I'm gonna throw in my ground beef. I'm gonna start to cook that up and then get my veggies ready. Now with this, you can add in any veggies that you want to. Anything that sounds good with like stir fry. I'm gonna slice up some snap peas, a couple of red peppers, and green onions. Snap peas are one of my favorite vegetables. The rest I'm just gonna eat, but we're almost good to go on this portion. I just gotta do my green onions. Now I like my veggies in a stir fry to still have a little bite to them, be a little bit crisp. So I'm not trying to cook these down too much. Just once I feel like the ground beef is fully cooked, I'm gonna take this off. I am gonna strain it. I mean, it looks like actually most of the grease has been cooked off. I don't know that I need to strain this. I just have this simmering on low because it's just about cooked. We need to make the sauce, which I'm gonna double the sauce because I've got a lot of ground beef here, more than what the recipe called for. So I'm gonna double the sauce. We're starting with 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. If you're looking for an alternative to soy sauce, I love the coconut liquid aminos. I prefer the flavor of this over soy sauce. So that's what I'm using today, but you can, of course, use regular soy sauce. So I'm gonna do 6 tablespoons of this. Okay, I need to do it with the lid off. Let's try that again. It calls for 2 tablespoons of hoisin sauce. Looks like this. So I'm gonna do 4 tablespoons. This is a little bit of a thicker sauce than soy sauce. And I mean, we're not soy free, this has soy in it, but I just honestly prefer the coconut aminos over soy sauce. 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. We need some minced garlic. And some ginger. It calls for fresh ginger, but I don't love the taste of fresh ginger, so I got powdered ginger. I'm just gonna stir this up and then we're gonna pour it over our beef mixture, let it cook for the flavors to be able to marinate together. And then honestly, that's all we have to do for this recipe. Do you like my cute Christmas spatula? My neighbor gave it to me over the holidays as a cute neighbor gift with some baked goods and cookie cutters and stuff. And it's so cute. I hate only using cute Christmassy things that you get only at Christmas time. So it's gonna live in my utensil drawer year round. This is a dish you could serve over ramen noodles or over rice, whatever is your preferred method. All I'm going to do when I want to use it is pull it out of the freezer, let it thaw, warm it up in a skillet, and then do either rice or noodles. And that will be a delicious dinner. Time to give it a little taste. It's pretty hot. That is so good. That sauce is delicious. And it was very few ingredients. I love it. I kind of want to have this for dinner tonight. I may need to steal a little portion off to the side for myself to eat and do the rest in a freezer bag. Before I put it into a plastic bag, I want it to really cool down. So I am just going to pour this out over here in this dish, wait till it cools off, and then I will put it in my storage bag to freeze. And we're gonna use my fancy chamber sealer that I am obsessed with. It's perfect for freezer meals. Let's get going on a freeze dryer recipe. So I don't use my freeze dryer just for long-term food storage. I use it for meal prepping. And what I love about it is that I can keep some of my meats on the pantry shelf. It doesn't have to take up space in my freezer. It's the best thing about owning a freeze dryer. So for this one, we are just doing 2 pounds of taco meat. Tacos are a go-to meal for my family that my kids enjoy, I enjoy, and it's nice to be able to have it grab and go ready to use. When I freeze dry ground beef, I like to choose a leaner cut of beef, which this was, and then I also will drain off any excess fat. A little bit of fat in your meats is not going to hurt it, but I do like to take off as much as I can, and definitely I try not to add fat to it. I've drained off the excess fat. Do you wanna know what was sad? Right before I was getting ready to film, I was soaking something in my sink, so I had my sink really full. I think it must have been the fullest I've ever filled it, and my sink started leaking. Like 20 minutes later, I noticed there's a huge puddle of water underneath my sink, in the cabinet, and on the floor. So that was fun. We could kind of see where it was leaking from, like the seam where underneath where the sink like meets the cabinet wall. We decided to drain the sink. Everything drained and it's not leaking anymore. I think it was because I filled the sink up too full. I don't know. We're gonna kind of ignore the problem as long as it stays dry now that we've dried everything out. So annoying. To turn this into taco meat, just choose whatever taco seasoning you like. This is about 2 pounds of beef, so I am doing 2 taco seasoning packets. I'm doing mild because that's what my children want. And then we're just gonna add water, let it simmer together, thicken up a little bit. Then it'll be ready for my freeze dryer tray. So you can see it's just sizzling away. It smells so good. I'm gonna let the liquid reduce down a little bit more before putting it onto my freeze dryer tray, but we are almost there. Each freeze dryer tray can hold roughly 2.5 pounds of food. So this amount of ground beef should be no problem to fit all the way on here. And there we go. I've got my taco meat on my freeze dryer tray. I'm gonna let this cool off before I stick my lid on it, and then I will be popping it in the freezer at the end of our big prepper day. Our tube of ground beef is getting smaller. Did I ever say the total amount that this cost me? I mentioned it was $1.99 a pound. This was 10 pounds. So this chunk of meat cost me $20. I literally have been seeing ground beef like $8.99 a pound lately for a decent cut of ground beef, which, so $1.99 was like a steal. I'm debating if we should do the freezer meal next or another freeze dryer. I think I'll do a freeze dryer meal, then the freezer meal, and then our last freeze dryer meal. Does that sound like a plan? I think that's what I'm gonna do. I gotta cook up my next 2 pounds of beef. This is one of the easiest things to meal prep, and it's one of the most convenient items to have on hand when you're looking for a quick dinner that needs to be done, you know, in a hurry. My kids love spaghetti, and I love having meat sauce in my spaghetti just to give them that added protein. And so my favorite way to have meat spaghetti sauce on hand is to freeze dry it. All I have to do is cook up my ground beef, add your favorite marinara sauce, either your amazing homemade kind, which I don't have, or I love this Rao's, is that how you say it? Rao's marinara. You get it at Costco. Whenever it's on sale, I buy a bunch of it, so I always have it on hand. But yeah, it doesn't get much easier than that. This consistency is looking great to me. I'm gonna go grab my other freeze dryer tray to pour this out. So I usually use tray liners when I use my freeze dryer to prevent food from sticking to the bottom. But what I've found is that when you have things that are liquidy, the liquids really stick to that liner and it's hard to get off. When it's straight into the tray, you can kind of scrape it off easier. So I'm gonna kind of experiment. The taco seasoning, I had the tray liner on. This one, I am not going to line, and just see what happens. I started to burn myself and made me drop my spatula. So let's get a clean one. And look, another Christmas one. I'm really pushing the limits on this tray. It is very full. I'm just gonna go for it because I think as time goes, the liquid will absorb more into the meat. I'm hoping. We will see. I'm actually really excited for this next recipe. I have never made it before. It is called a Tamale Casserole. I love tamales. Mexican food is one of my favorite things. I grew up and lived most of my life in Arizona, where we have amazing Mexican food. Tamales are the best. This is a tamale casserole, so I'll show you how it all comes together. First, I gotta cook up the ground beef. So the way this recipe works is we are doing kind of like a tamale filling made with ground beef and some veggies and seasonings. And then it's gonna be topped with a cornbread mixture and then baked in the oven. So it's gonna be kind of tamale-esque with the cornbread topping, but not exactly tamales. I am going in with about a cup of corn. We're gonna use the rest of the corn later in the, what am I trying to say? The cornbread topping. But it also is gonna have some corn in the mixture here. 2 teaspoons of chili powder. Just kind of eyeball. Mine's gotten a little hard. Hopefully it's fine. And the last thing I'm gonna add is a 15-ounce jar of red enchilada sauce. I got the Siete Foods brand. They make really good tortillas, salsas, things like that. So I thought I would try their red enchilada sauce. I really like that they only use avocado oil in their recipes. Jar is really hard to open. Here we go, here we go. Don't need no man. Got the muscles. Just gonna pour this whole thing on top. I've now just removed it from the heat and I am adding a cup of freshly grated cheddar cheese. This looks so good. I am so excited about this one. I've never made anything like it before. I've done like enchilada casseroles where you kind of layer enchilada ingredients in between tortillas and bake it that way. But a tamale casserole just sounds so good. Okay, this is our first component. I'm just gonna let it cool off a little bit while we get together the topping. I got this cornbread from Costco a while ago. It's from Famous Dave's and it actually, it's pretty tasty. So I'm just mixing this up to the package directions by adding a 1/3 cup of milk, a 1/3 cup of water, 1 egg, and I'm gonna be adding a can of Hatch green chilies, mild, and a little bit more corn, and the rest of my cheddar cheese. As I'm mixing up the cornbread mixture, I decided to leave out the extra corn in the cornbread topping. We just don't love corn that much, and so since the meat mixture already has corn in it, that's gonna be enough. The cornbread will be tasty enough on its own without the added corn. So yeah, I just skipped that part. I got myself new Pyrex baking dishes for such freezer meals because I didn't have anything that like had a lid on it. It came with like 3 different sizes. I am really liking these. So I am going to pour my meat mixture into my dish. Let's try not to burn myself this time. I was worried that this dish was going to be too big, but I actually think it's okay. Okay, this is nice and smooth, and now the idea is to just pour this on top of it. And this is where I'm gonna stop for the freezer meal. I'm gonna put it in my freezer unbaked directly like this. And then when I want to cook it, I'm gonna pull it out of the freezer the night before, put it into my fridge to let it thaw. Then I will be baking it at 350 degrees for about 40 to 45 minutes. You just want your topping to get nice and golden brown. But I'm not gonna bake it before freezing. Is that the right thing? Yeah, I'm not gonna bake it before putting it in the freezer. It's gonna go in just like this. So it's 7:30 at night, which doesn't seem that late, but I'm working tomorrow and I don't have it in me to do one more ground beef recipe tonight. I'm gonna save it for tomorrow. So I'm just gonna get these ones that I've already finished into my freezer down in my basement. And then tomorrow after work, I am going to finish off my last freeze dryer ground beef recipe. I like to pre-freeze my foods before putting them into the freeze dryer. So I'm just gonna freeze these tonight, and then tomorrow my next freeze dryer tray will go in the freezer with these guys until I'm ready to freeze dry them. This here is my Avid Armor chamber sealer, which I will show you how it works. It is so cool. It really does work way better than just like your normal vacuum sealer. It sucks out so much more air. So I've got my mixture here. I like to kind of spread it out a little. I'm going to set it inside of my chamber. And then there's a little clip here you click the top of the bag into. I'm going to close it. I got meat on top of there. Okay. This thing is so cool. If you want one and don't have one, I have a 10% off discount code with Avid Armor. All the details can be found in the video description below if you want to get yourself 10% off one of their chamber sealers. And look how cool. It is perfectly vacuum sealed, nice and tight. It's sealed shut. I love this. This was half of the mixture, so I've just got one more to do. And here's my next one. I kind of like that I have them in 2 bags, not one big bag, because each of these will feed my husband and I easily. So I'll only have to take out one at a time, which that's convenient. Do we think I can make it down to my freezer with all of this? I don't know. Okay, no. I'm gonna do 2 trips. Since I'm tired and have lots of dishes to do, tomorrow after work, I am going to do my last freeze dryer recipe. I'm subbing tomorrow. In my last video, if you saw it, you know that a 5th grader called me Mrs. Poopy Pants. So I wonder what tomorrow has in store for me. You better stick around, because maybe I'll have a good story to share. I don't know. Sometimes days are smooth sailing, other times they're full of fun adventures. Over at the elementary school, you know. Chaos and fun. Well, hello. It is the next day. It has been one hectic day today, okay? Worked at the school. Nothing very exciting happened. Well, okay, one thing happened. Our school building is very old, and the librarian noticed a leak, water coming out of her storage closet. So I went over to help her assess the situation and the damage, and it was pretty bad. Like, the ceiling tiles were all completely muddled together and like shriveled up, wetness, nasty. So we had to move all of her supplies that were in, you know, the path of the water. They were starting to get soaked. So Luckily, none of her books got ruined. Some other posters and stuff did, but such a pain. Such a pain. I feel so bad. It's like annoying. That was the only eventful thing that happened today. I decided for my last pound and a half or so of ground beef to just cook it up with salt and pepper. I forgot that I love just having regular ground beef on hand, and then I can use it in whatever I want. So I am going to freeze dry this. What I use this mostly in are soups and chilies. When I have freeze-dried ground beef, I store it in just like a mason jar, and then if I'm making chili, I don't have to cook up any fresh meat and make a mess on my stove. All I have to do is throw the ingredients in the crock pot, toss in the freeze-dried beef, and it rehydrates beautifully, and you would never know it was freeze-dried. So that's what this tray is going to be today. We've also been working on a few little house projects today, and noticed I got paint on my pants, so that's fun for me. I'm gonna run this down to my freezer and let's do a recap of everything that we made. I should rearrange this, but we have our, what was this one? Pasta sauce, our meat spaghetti sauce. We have our taco meat. This is just our plain beef. Here is our tamale casserole, and then up here, I have our Korean barbecue ground beef. I'd call that a successful freezer haul. I'd call that a successful freezer haul. I'd call that a successful freezer haul. My future self is going to thank me for doing all this. Now I can actually use my ground beef that I saved a ton of money on and put it to good use. And it's gonna be nice and convenient whenever I want those meals. Now, if you wanna see how I actually freeze dry this ground beef and reconstitute it and actually use it in my cooking, make sure you're subscribed to my channel because that will be in a future video. Thank you so much for watching. You guys are all the best. Remember, when you freeze dry today, you secure your tomorrow. Bye, friends.